today. May 25, year 2009. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people here, and a couple of dogs and cats. And this is ACAP. People don't seem to be in great numbers, but we're good quality people here. And here we have Richard. We have Spivak. We have Mo Hein, right? Burmese. 4 years in prison, political prisoner. We have John Steinmetz here, and we have Joe Friendly, and we have Humphrey. Humphrey the Wonder Dog, yes. Dumb as a post, but laid back and beautiful. I love him. And welcome. And we were going to talk, had some people we suggested might be able to talk to the group, as it were. Everybody got tied up, so I said, well, I would try to lay out my thing, and so I do it. We were going to try and put graphics up on the wall, but it didn't work, the projector, so that's where we are. But I printed them up. Yeah, oh. And this is the thing, for whatever it's worth, you can take it with you if you want. You want to pass them around? Sure. And here you go. And so this is the thing, it's not the page this is the page I wanted. This is the thing myself. So it's public access cable television. And I gave a talk to, I was a professor for many years and got cashiered for being, I don't know, pathologically perhaps anti-authoritarian. I never would give grades to anybody. And it got into trouble even though I was very popular and whatnot and everything. But anyway, I haven't had a place to venue, so my friend Robert Dannon had me give a class, and that's up on the internet. They could go to it. And we call it Public Access Television Within a World Systems Pattern of Understanding, kind of big deal talk and all that. But that's what it's about. And so this is a drawing of Bucky Fuller, Louis Kelso, and others, okay? So if you look at this, we could look at this, and then we can shoot it down or do whatever. But if you go to the first page, and maybe we can show this after on the screen, but so public access cable television I happen to believe in. I understand from some people that the series I Have Conversations that airs each weekday at 10:30 a.m. following the Truth for a Change on public access is the longest running public access program in the country. So we've been at it from the beginning. I believe in it, and I think it's very important because it's very unique. Particularly because of the way it's financed. It's very unique, and it's under fire now. And so it says public access production distribution is free to the producer because of an arrangement of a number of factors in the society made it possible for civil society representatives to have input to the normal loci of power and influence in the society, which is roughly corporate, profit, private sector, and then on the other side government, which is tax and spend and regulate. And that's normally what all the news is reported. But in that year around 1970, Martin King and so forth, and Woodstock and Vietnam, there was input from civil society to have cable, which was coming along as a medium of abundance, they called it, financed in a way where they would set aside, the industry has agreed over the decades, to set aside about 5% of their net of tax earnings to set up these public access and also government and educational payback to the society. The industry has accepted that largely, but now there are a number of people trying to back away from that. But anyway, it makes it possible for the capital costs and the operating costs for an entity like at Manhattan Network, or there's 3,000 of them across the country, to be paid from franchising agreements with the cable industry. And it comes to real money, and they can set up facilities in a unique way for the people, that is under public. Anybody can go there and produce, and you don't have to make it a business. And so that's unique. And it's open for all non-monetary based communication, early example akin to non-commercial uses of the internet, and model for other non-commercially based venues for emerging, comfortably leisured. Come in, Mr. Randolph. Mr. Randolph, there's only a few of us here, my brother. You're looking great.
Thank you.
Randolph Wicker has just arrived.
You have a 12A
Activist
number and 13 is the bill number. I think we got to get rid of that nonsense.
That's because
Building his superstition.
superstition. They call it 12A on the elevator, but it's the 13th floor and all that, so it gets into all kinds of trouble. And you got a cyber doorman that makes it tricky to get in. Good to see you, Randolph. Really good to see you.
I'm late. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right.
Oh, there. Wow.
There he is, the
There
green,
he is.
the
only other
Spivak.
trans-age man I know. Good to see you.
So anyway, this I'm going to give you a thing here if you want. I'm going to quit talking here soon, but here. And so this is the graphics I did for that talk we gave in 1998, and it hasn't changed. And in fact, I saw a program I did way the hell back in 1974 with Ed Saunders. And he was the member of the Fugs, along with Thule Kupferberg. And the thing that impressed me about it is that I haven't changed at all in about 40 years. I mean, the same premises that I had then seem to be relevant now. And that's encouraging and discouraging at the same time because, as you can say, but essentially it's the same, bringing up the same things. And so it's the same old thing, as some people would say. But anyway, so there's a little thing here, the first page, and it seems, I make a couple premises here that maybe would be worth mentioning, and this is off the work of Buckminster Fuller and others. And the first item is, let me read it, and then it'll be something that we can just deal with or whatever. But it says, in terms of its collective capability, and what we're going to be talking about here is not the reality that we see as we look at the news and out at the world. It's all at the level of capability that we're interested in. And it said, in terms of its collective capability, mankind, after 200,000 years of cultural and technological development, has transcended material scarcity at the level of capability. We're here 200,000 years ago, and we can extend our consciousness and make the environment other than in the Eden-like sense is given. And we've had that capability uniquely, and we're now coming at a time of qualitative transformation. A new real capability to provide life support within an ecologically appropriate pattern for all the world's citizens, and that's also the ecology. In terms of capability, there are now, and have been since, in my reckoning, since about the year 1970, against 200,000 years of human experience, we have the point where there are actually more haves than have-nots for the first time. And that's a major premise that was advanced by Buckminster Fuller and others, and is signaled in on that year 1970. It's my contention the spirit of Woodstock and what was going on and was blowing in the wind was that we were reaching that millennial point of capability. And then it says, second is most important milestone of this or any other century, obviously the transition is in our collective design capability, not the actual manifestly inadequate reality inherited from history. New post-scarcity reality capacity has only applied since about the year 1970 against all of human history, so that a gigantic existentially significant alteration in our relationship to the broader cosmos has occurred and is overlooked. The intellectual community has overlooked a major paradigm shifts in the history of our species, and it seems somehow worthwhile taking account of, possibly. So you got Bucky Fuller, Marshall McLuhan, Teilhard Chardin, Ray Kurzweil is writing really interesting things in the cyber realm now. And then there's an economic system, Louis Kelso, that I'm interested in, we're going to talk some about, or want to. And Muammar Gaddafi. I'm very interested in Muammar Gaddafi. I think he's ahead of the curve in terms of organization of society and keeping with the future, rather than reifying the institutions and assumptions and thoughts of human nature and the institutional structures we've inherited out of history, which is an ancient regime, in my view, much like the United States was to feudal Europe in 1778. So that's the major premise, in my view. Now, there's a chart. If we turn one page over, right? And this is a thing that was done. This is Fuller, okay? And this is a thing that he'd copyrighted in 1952. And he's making this premise that we're gaining, because of technology, and there's a great site that I really like among the welter of things that are available on the internet now. It's called the Zeitgeist Movement. A fellow down in Florida comes up with it. Zeitgeist? I'm not sure. Z-E-I-T-G-E-I-S-T. The Zeitgeist Movement.
Is there a pencil? I gotta make notes because
I don't have a pencil. Let me.
Pencil because like there's two things that I
thought of already.
Yeah,
to criticize. Yeah.
You mentioned.
Here's a pen.
Right,
good. Right.
I don't need it if I can bring it up right now.
Yeah, go ahead. Bring it up. It's just me rambling on.
You mentioned that the United States has.
Can we back that up so we're getting everybody, Joe, my camera, or not? Or can you back it up maybe so you can get everybody in or not? And maybe take it back. Because the mic is really good. It picks it up. Or do it. You do it. You're an expert at that. Yeah.
You're talking about the United States in relation to the rest of Europe.
Well, no, I wasn't, but
Yeah, you mentioned something about the United States.
Go ahead.
As opposed to Europe or something in a development.
I don't remember.
So I said, well, the United States development going beyond Europe, you have to take into consideration the slaughter of the inhabitants that inhabited the area the United States now occupies.
No question, no question.
So
it was a horror.
If the advances of the United States over Europe requires the slaughter of the people who lived here, then I don't think that's an advance.
Yeah, but I don't remember talking about the United States and Europe at all. I was talking about humanity and trying to see things in a very comprehensive template, the way Bucky Fuller and others were trying to figure out what in the world is going on in terms of the evolution of universal consciousness of which we are a part. It didn't take into account necessarily the geopolitical arrangements and that. That could all be included. But he was just saying, like this chart here, if I may, Randy, or Richard, this is the thing that he did. He was a comprehensivist, and he had a thing called World Game, where they took population trends, new technologies, capability, in a non-ideologically larded manner, and said that we were in, and the Zeitgeist movement also takes it into account. What has changed is not human consciousness, or human beings biological, has not changed or making a transformation. It's the effects of the extended consciousness, which is technology. That's what's changing. And that's what's changing rapidly and making a very new kind of situation emerge.
I have two questions, two comments.
Yeah.
Actually, three comments. First,
All right.
I want to say that I'm wearing my flag tie, and
great.
in honor of the Americans who died, so we have public access.
Yes.
And the free press and journalists really should be the heroes of our century instead of the blind, supposedly.
Mo, would you turn on that light behind you? 3 twists.
The second
It'll
point,
give more light.
The second point I want to make
Can I make a point on your first point?
So far, because
Turn 2 more times. It'll make it bright.
Who died to give us public access to the free press.
Okay.
The second point I want to make is that we are at the moment, through technology, beating the famine. We were all supposed to be starving death in 1970 because of genetically engineered food. You know, India not only is a food importer, it's a food exporter. It feeds its own expanded population. But I'm not sure that we can continue that. I hope we can.
Well,
but I think you have to judge that a little bit.
I got a problem with both of those points you've made.
But it's a fact of the matter. But the trouble is they're having bioethical discussions up at the UN. I covered this weekend about what the ethics are of genetically engineered food. If there wasn't genetically engineered food, people would be starving to death all over the world.
Okay, now the two problems I have with the problem I have with each of the points is you're honoring those who died to give us public access television,
free press,
and a free press. I don't believe that that's true. I believe that they died and killed. And I don't think it was for public access and a free press. I believe it was to line the pockets of Halliburton and the war machine and the corporations that benefit the war profiteers. That's why they fought and died. But not only did they fight and die, they murdered.
We can argue what they died for, but let me tell you, the net effect is they were dying to protect our society.
No,
as
that's not
our
true.
Society,
That's not true.
Press,
They
we have
didn't
public
fight
access,
and
we have
die
YouTube. You
to
can't get it in
protect
China
our
or
society.
Russia. Russian journalists are being killed today, and they're the real heroes.
Order!
Order in the
Order in the House of Commons! Order! Order!
I disagree. Now we had
I disagree with what you said by everyone.
We had two reporters.
I disagree with the order.
We had two reporters who were jailed in Iran and two reporters that were jailed in Korea. And I don't even believe they were reporters. I believe they were spies. Because they appeared in those countries right at the time that the war machine corporations were building war talk to go against Iran and to go against Korea.
You're falling for the America is evil mentality.
Oh,
That's
it's
a
just
mistake.
no-
We are the good guys. Maybe we're misguided. Yes, sometimes
No, that's not true.
we have stupid wars like in
Not
Iran
true.
and Iraq. But still, the basic thing is those guys go out there and die. They don't know anything about politics. They die for our country.
Joe Friendly has a word to say, ladies and
He just wanted
gentlemen.
me to allow him to make his point. But I believe that that's not true. They're not fighting to protect our liberties. They're fighting to protect the profits of the war machine. And
Yeah, but for
Both at the same time.
good or
no,
ill,
they're not doing the other one.
but for good or ill, Bucky Fuller wasn't talking about politics.
He was talking.
He
about
wasn't
how we're
political.
the good guys and they're the bad guys. But our reporters are spies who are sent.
Daniel
into-
Pear had his head cut off trying to give us the truth out of Pakistan. How dare you say that? Our reporters are spies. Our reporters are heroes. We should build monuments to journalism and have journalism the most respected profession in America. Instead, we villainize them and say, oh, you don't trust what
Well, look,
they're
God, I saw a commercial on television.
Commercial?
I saw a commercial.
You believe commercials?
I saw a commercial on television
Okay,
about
good. So what-
buying the Weekender version of the New York Times, and one of the guys, one of the talking heads says, well, the best reporters work in the New York Times. There's no denying that. There's no doubting that. Yeah, like Judith Miller.
Yeah, but
Judith Miller worked in the New
She
York
went to
Times.
jail to protect the source. She stood for freedom of the press.
No.
Like it or not.
Judith Miller was not jailed to protect sources. She was jailed because she was protecting the criminals who outed people in order to shut them up when they were saying there's no yellow cake. When they're not going after yellow cake. That's a false.
Harold, you were right.
well, I don't.
Less than 10 minutes.
Well, unless I know, and also with all due.
Judith Miller was not protecting sources
Could we-
in order to keep whistleblowers protected so they continue to give us
So they continue
information.
whistleblowing.
They're
That's
not-
the whole point.
What whistleblower did she
Because
protect?
whistleblowers aren't
Irving
protected.
Scooter Libby Jr. is a whistleblower?
This is an example of free press.
Yes,
action.
right.
Exactly.
No.
But could
And
we-
she went to jail to
Irving
keep
Lewis
the press
Jr.
free. I like
Scooter
Judith Miller.
Libby
Good for
was
her.
not a whistleblower. He was a criminal element in the Bush criminal administration to out Valerie Plame in order to destroy Joe Wilson so he wouldn't blow the whistle on there is no yellow cake being purchased.
All right, yeah.
One quick question. Does
Yeah.
Harold have anything more to say?
Well, I would say, James.
I'm glad you asked.
It has nothing to do with what was being brought up. I mean, that's okay to go off on a political rant and everything, and there's a lot of that, and we're in time of qualitative but it has nothing to do with what the major assertion. What he's asserting is that there's something existentially new in the time in which we live, apart from 200,000 years of human experience.
And you brought up the
Now,
fact
wait a
that
minute.
there's more-
Where do you get 200,000 years?
Well, that's when Homo sapien, best modeling is when Homo sapien appeared, coming up as a new species 200,000 years ago in Africa. We've been here 10,000 generations, and we're all out of Africa.
But real culture began 10,000 years ago. I saw
Not talking
thing
culture,
book notes.
talking about the species.
No, I'm talking about
Yeah, but
this
200
guy on book
and
notes
also
today.
200,000 years ago, they had much more of resources. So we're really in worse shape than we were 200,000 years ago.
And
we had one person and all those resources.
Interestingly, according to a book notes program today, I saw today, please let me hear say this, according to the book notes program, a guy who studies intelligence, we've had an exponential growth in IQ that cannot be described, explained by genetics or anything else, because we have so much access today. We have more TV, more internet. People are actually brighter today than they were before.
Listen, the United States is the wealthiest country in the world. You see? That's my point. The United States is the wealthiest country in the world.
Yes.
Getting its wealth from stealing and subjugating the rest of the planet. However, the wealthiest country in the world spends most of its wealth keeping its citizens the stupidest people on the planet.
Okay, that's a premise, and but the point being, again, not looking at it within that James Joyce had Daedalus say, history is a nightmare from which I'm attempting to awaken. The issue before us, gentlemen, is there any premises or modeling or anything that could indicate that the alarm clock maybe is there for us to hear, that there's an alteration in the unjust system that has been characteristic of virtually all of human history in some new way? And if so, how do we get at it, and what is the what are the points of it?
The new thing that's happening.
Okay, good.
North Korea has a nuclear bomb now. Iran is developing one. Soon everybody will have one, and it will be necessary for each citizen to have one if they're going to be able to protect themselves against the nation states. So that is going to quantitatively and qualitatively change the possibility of survival.
In order to protect yourself from nuclear holocaust, each individual must have a nuclear
thermonuclear.
What happened was
hydrogen.
North Korea developed some primitive nuclear device which prevented George Bush from attacking Korea.
Can I suggest?
And Iraq didn't have one. And we knew they didn't have, the Bush administration knew they didn't have weapons of mass destruction, knew they didn't have the nuclear weapons, and that's why we went in to Korea.
Can I amaze you?
No, we didn't. We went into Iraq and not Korea because we knew that Korea had it, and therefore we can't go in there. We knew that Iraq did not have it, and that's why we went in there.
Can I amaze you by agreeing with something you said?
Yeah, go ahead.
And that is that we're getting more stupid generations. You know why? When I was young, if you lived in California, you got a free public education. All I had to do is feed your mouth and have shelter over your head.
Right.
I'm at the University of Texas, $225 for out-of-state tuition for 15 credits an hour. We have to have what they have in socially democratic Europe, where it doesn't matter if you're father or mother or professionals or working class. If you have the intelligence, you have the ability, you can make something of your life. You have the skills. You're given the educational opportunity. That levels the playing field for all people, and that is the key to making our whole society less stupid. As you
Right.
Could we address the issue?
All right. The issue that
The major premise
you brought up a
is
premise.
the premise is,
You brought up a
is
premise
there something
that said there are more haves than there are have-nots.
Well, wait a
And I
minute.
wanna ask
Wait
you,
a minute.
Where is that?
Where is
that?
Make the distinction.
Where is that?
I told you
I
at the
don't
very
believe
beginning,
that.
Richard, if I
There's
suggested...
no more haves and have-nots.
Richard, at the very beginning of this effort...
Well, having have.
No, at the very...
How do you know you have unless you quantify it?
Let me make a couple of points,
If you're
gentlemen.
working in a sweatshop, you're not one of the haves unless what you're saying is a have is a job in a
Gentlemen,
sweatshop.
we've been rude to our hosts.
At the very beginning...
The main speaker.
At the very beginning...
Well, I learned how to interrupt from this man. He's a master.
That's true. He's a master.
He has something important.
Well, no, I don't know if I do or not. I don't
I
know.
want to hear it.
Well, at the beginning of this thing where I tried to do it, it doesn't have anything to do with reality the way you're talking, the political. I'm not talking about that. We're talking at it at the level of capability.
All right, there's
Now,
more
wait.
haves and have-nots.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. At the level of capability, and that is it. That's in terms of the materialistic view of the world emerging out of history, not spiritual things, not things that were projected in ancient times, but a capability that exists, extensions of technological capability. On one side, modeling is that the weapon systems, unlike as recently as the Second World War, that do exist and where the major research is done and brain power and economic concern has been directed, that the weapon systems now are species lethal.
Here, here.
They were not as recently as the Second World War. I was alive in the Second World War. We were trying. We were impotent. We were impotent in the destructive capability at a species-wide level. You could kill the other tribe, you could steal the grain, all the kind of things, but they are now our species lethal. That's an existential new reality at the level of capability which can't be tested. We can't do it and hope that maybe a couple survivors would be in New Guinea or something. We can't test it. It's at the level of modeling. That's its capability, but it has an existence in reality short of actual reality about what you're talking and so on. Now, on the other side, what is the reverse side in the yin-yang view of things that is equally existentially significant in the evolution of capability, that is equally significant to the fact that we now have a species-lethal capability of stopping the evolution of consciousness and understanding, which has been humanity. And my contention is, and it's coming off Mr. Fuller and others, is that we have, at the level of capability, transcended material scarcity. That's the premise.
I disagree.
We have a no, you can disagree. That's the premise to be examined.
But it's a bad premise because we always had the capability of doing away with scarcity, but the ruling class always made their profits on controlling scarcity.
May I add an addendum? Sure. I'm not talking about people eating. I'm not just talking about people eating and having enough to eat or the justice and all those kind of things that makes up history. I'm talking also about knowledge and of knowing of things. 20, 30 years.
Wait a second, I remember a story. Wait a second, I remember a very early story, as they've eaten from the tree of
knowledge.
Yeah. And we must not allow them to eat from the tree of knowledge or they will become like us.
But could we...
I mean, they were controlling knowledge before they even had any.
Wait a minute. What I say is that as long as we have genetically engineered salmon that grow 4 times as fast in ponds, genetically engineered salmon will give us enough fish for all the fish we need in the world.
The chart that we were trying to look at from Dr. Fuller, the chart on page 3 that we were trying to look at, which I think will be remembered. I think Mr. Fuller was perhaps the best mind ever to come down the pipe. Let me finish. Shut up.
And that makes genetically engineered patients for the cancer.
Well, thank you. I'd appreciate that. But the thing is that this is probably... Galileo is remembered not for understanding all the details of the orbit pathways of Jupiter or something. He is remembered, hiya man, Ron made it, okay. He is remembered for proposing that we go that the sun does not go around us, we go around the universe. That's a pattern. Buckminster Fuller and others, particularly the spirit of that age that we look back to 1980, 1968, 70, there were others, but Buckminster Fuller will be remembered for this chart. Not for all the details of geodesic or the design or what it might mean or, all of that. This is the chart that is the most fundamental pattern that, like Galileo was presenting to the universe, the one we have transcended scarcity as a reality at the level of... Now, is it possible, and that involves humanity, we have a capability of providing for everybody and the ecology that simply we have not had. And that's not just food. That is understanding and knowledge. We're coming to the end of the human experience. We're coming. We've been 10,000 generations. We've reached a point. Well, he can if he wants. But we're coming. That's the premise. Now, is it possible that you can have an understanding that there is, rather than scarcity, which has been the condition, zero sum, that we've come out of all of history, and one tribe was stealing from another and all the rest of it going on, that we have a capability of providing for everyone and that our institutions were formulated and our thoughts of human nature and all thought, all institutions, everything were formulated in a context which has been subsumed and is being subsumed by an alteration at the level of capability on the positive side. We've transcended material scarcity at a level of capability is a premise. Is it ipso facto absurd?
Yes.
Idealistically and absurd never can be enough. That's the premise that we're told.
No.
Human nature is
That's not why
greedy
it's
and so
absurd.
forth.
It's not absurd
Sir, I think you're
because...
talking.
Okay, now you're but you're not talking about the reality. You're
Yeah,
not
I'm
talking.
talking about reality.
Well, no,
I'm
you're not
talking
talking.
about-
Well,
They're not
unless
gonna
you want to
let it
go
happen.
into. Well,
They're not going to let it happen.
yeah, but it's not.
This guy's engineered food. This guy's engineered food.
Right.
All it does
So
is
feed the world. Save the world from starvation.
It won't
That's what
save the
it'll
world
do.
from
It will.
starvation.
You're
It
a
will
natural
save the
food
hospitals from not having enough patients.
Gentlemen, these are details. These are orbit
Details.
pathways of Jupiter. It's not the big pattern.
Can I ask a big question? The big
Yeah.
question is, it isn't so much a question of whether
Bovine
there's going to be
growth
scarcity or adequate enough. I think the real question is there equal access to what there is.
That's another issue.
No, that's
not
a big issue
no.
because if we are able
didn't
to
say it
produce
wasn't
enough
big.
for everyone, then as long as everyone has an equal chance to access it and use it, then there's no problem.
That could inform
when
the-
a small percentage of Americans own like something like the top 5%.
Yes, we know that.
own
We know
30
that.
or 50% of
We
the
know
world,
that.
We have a real problem.
That's
today.
what's inherited out of history. You've got a
Have a
small
problem in
group.
the whole
that-
world.
You have a
Have
small
a
whole problem in the
Yeah,
whole
but we know
world.
that's politics. But this is the premise that he makes, and that he puts a date on it. 1970 is when we crossed that line. Both the level of weapon systems became species lethal about then, and the transcending material scarcity as a reality became real then, and that's what was blowing in the wind that Bobby Dylan was. It wasn't sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was a major transformation in the evolution of universal
We
consciousness.
got this one man.
That's the premise.
Let him speak. Let this man
It's
speak.
because he doesn't know English. He's here from Burma.
Yeah,
Speak English.
yeah, he does.
I attended this gathering because of Memorial Day.
Good for
So,
you.
if you get a chance, I would like to talk maybe different view.
Say it. Say
Yeah,
it.
because
That's what this is for.
you are my American friends.
Yes.
I will be American next year.
Oh, good.
Good.
Okay.
Welcome aboard.
But I have been growing up in Asia, so I am really Asian. So my view is one of the Asian people view. This view is maybe very useful, maybe
Very useful.
Just
1/3 of the world or
maybe
more.
Let him make his point.
maybe different view.
Good.
But please pardon, forgive me if my view is wrong. Maybe
Okay,
because
let's get it.
I would like to review what is America. What is American?
What is?
Yes. Today.
It's not American, it's humanity.
You're
No, let him
interrupting
talk
him.
about what is
Wait a
America,
minute.
because this is
Will you let him speak, please?
Let this
I would
Asian
like
speak.
to explain.
No, but you don't
The
understand.
view.
Wait a
The
minute.
Americans don't
Let him
allow
speak.
Asians to speak.
No,
That's the American way.
I'm going to give you
hearing
your
it out
platform.
too.
Go ahead. It's your platform. Say what you have to say.
We are, my family, my people, most of the Asian people understand American are. No country in the world history like America. American people sacrifice all war. Second World War looked like the Normandy, salvation of Europe, and Korean War, and Vietnamese War.
Vietnamese.
So every war times American people sacrifice
What do you mean sacrifice?
for
Die.
So the real location of America is very different place, but they never thought, America never thought, the war never thought any place of war. They always want to help these people.
But that's not relevant to the
No,
issue.
it is. That's very important. Even though they're misguided in Vietnam, they were trying to help, but they were wrong in the way they were trying to help.
Maybe different other people. Please understand me. My view, the Asian view, American, the spirit of Americans, the real spirit of America is they never sign us. They never sign us. They never stop.
They argue.
They are always listening across the world. They want to help any people, if trouble any people, they want to help. They are ready. This is American spirit, my view. So I appreciate American spirit. I understand what is the American, really American is that guys, the guys of these people, you know, the war in Europe, 1938-39, America is a peaceful land. But after the Pearl Harbor, they are all American Germans go to the Europe world better. They died, a lot of American young people dying in the Normandy, Europe, all the bank of the Rhine River. You know, listen, my view is, no one country like America.
If I may, Mo, I appreciate.
All history.
I appreciate.
The Roman Emperor, you know, the Roman Emperor, Ottoman Emperor, you know,
British
Emperor.
America.
Very different.
American Empire.
Very different. I don't like the American Emperor. America is United States of America. No emperor. But the reality is like the emperor. But in American today, the power of America is a difference in history. So no one emperor like the America today.
Okay, with all due respect, Mo, that doesn't address the issue that we're trying to bring up.
It tells us it's our
We're not
obligation
talking,
to
it's going to inform the political process, but we're talking about something at a design level, at an understanding of a reality transcendent or above the normally accepted reality that we see as the news and all of that. It's not that. We've inherited all kinds of institutions, notions of human nature out of history that is being transcended and subsumed within a larger context. It's like speciation. Or we're coming to an alternative way in universe. At the end of, when you get to the point where we can destroy the whole species, that's something existentially new. What is equally existentially significant at the level of capability, again, design, artists, design, that is equally significant at that level of existential significance for the whole of humanity. It's not America or Vietnam or that. You know, that's what I'm trying to say. Is it possible we are going to be able to transcend ironclad laws of scarcity, which has informed all of economic theory, and it's informed all of political theory throughout history, which James Joyce called a nightmare, from which we may be awakening. And I think it would be better that we be considered liberating humanity and the ecology rather than obliterating it, which seems to be the choice before us now, unlike history. Something new is blowing in the wind now. That's what we want to address. Not the political, not the details of the politics, but the larger reality.
Yeah, Stephen Colbert said.
Oh, Stephen Colbert.
Stephen Colbert said, I knew that Barack Obama was transformative, but what I didn't know is he's transforming into George Bush.
Well, okay, that's another take political. But I'm trying to get you to address that larger issue.
Let me take the larger issue.
Or maybe it's absurd.
Let me take the larger issue. A couple of things.
Yeah, please.
There's a new book out by a guy named Shirky. It's about, you know, that all the people are coming, all the crowds are coming out or something of that nature. What he's talking about is what the impact of the new media is. And he does a historical thing, and he talks about what happened when the printing press first arrived, which was a major transcendent moment.
Absolutely.
And what happened was that the Archbishop at the time fought against getting rid of scribes, because scribes was what he knew how to deal with. They were the ones who had copied the manuscripts over and over.
Right.
The fascinating thing was when he wrote his book to protect the scribes, the way he had it published was using the printing press, because he couldn't get enough scribes to actually write the books, even though that's what he was defending. What's going on now, according to this guy, is we've got media coming out now.
That's why we're talking public access.
Exactly. We've got media coming out now. But it's taking as long as the printing press took to make its changes, which took 200 years, between 1400 and 1600, the media is going to take maybe at least 50 years to make its changes, and nobody knew what the impact of the printing press was going to be, you know, at 1400.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what the impact of...
But Jerry, the internet...
Well, let him finish. Give him a couple sentences to put the dot on it.
If you try to set it up now that you know what the problem is, you specify it that clearly, you're slowing down the progress the same way that the Archbishop did, who said this is the answer, and we've got to stick with this.
Fundamentalism won't work.
Exactly.
The universe is centered.
This is a form of fundamentalism.
Well, no, it's
even calling Bucky, you know, before the new media showed up, as knowing it all, is a form of fundamentalism. What you have to do is say, my God, there's something extraordinary happening.
Right.
It's going to be a new ecology.
Right.
We don't know where it's heading.
Right.
And it's amazing to be part of it right now.
Well, that's true. And he always just said everything's synergetic. The behavioral system's unpredicted by the sum of the parts, or something more than the sum of the parts of a maximally engaged system. We have been coming, and he's synergetic, and it's going to be shrouded in mystery. If we make it, and we liberate the human society where everyone's able to participate in terms of their given sense of participation, like everybody in an orchestra, or liberate, rather than have us all be like slaves within a system where you're picking up leaves on a feudal estate like a serf, like always has been, a few people controlling everything, everybody else just at the behest of them, templates set by a few leaders, whether they're emperors or kings or bankers or whatever they are, but you're going to have it liberated, and the system, then that will be a resonating relationship to the cosmos, almost on the level, it's like punctuated equilibrium in evolution, and we're coming to the end of 200,000 years. I'm trying to get a sense of the transformation inherent in the situation now.
During feudalism, we don't know who was living the good life. Was it the guy?
The aristos were living a good life in the castle.
Who was the feudal guy? Or was it the guy, the lord in the cold castle? Or was it who had to kill the other people to even survive?
Well, it's an interesting question.
You don't know at any point, because you're living in the middle of a particular section.
Well, all right, we are, and it is synergetic. And if we do, and if you're in the womb and you're leaving the womb, and or if you're a Cro-Magnon in a cave, you're trying to figure out with self-reflective consciousness, what the hell is it all about? Unlike a crocodile, can't do that. You're thinking that way on the leading edge of conscious evolution. You're coming up with myths and things like that to try and understand it. But now we're coming down based upon knowledge and so forth, and we're coming down to where the reality is such that we're going to come into a new relationship in the universe of a collective, liberated humanity, which will be a resonancy. It's like we're coming to speciation, punctuated equilibrium, if we have liberation. So that speciation is like we had Australopithecine 4 million years ago, and you come up, and Homo habilis, we had a line up the hominoid line, and 200,000 years ago, this very unique kind of a consciousness appeared called Homo sapien. 10,000 generations. We're coming to the end of that. We're coming to a new relationship in the cosmos of a liberated, fully engaged, all instruments in the orchestra playing maximally, and we have that capability if we see that we...
Right?
Yes.
It's the Homo sapien age, so it's not a new appearance.
No, but we're about to leave the womb. We're about to leave the womb. And we're at the point again, do we have an argument that the weapon systems, if there was an unleashing of them, would mean that there would not be a single human being survive?
It's beyond
no, do we believe that's true?
But
or
one more response.
Yeah, sure.
I think that Harold, what you're barking up on, what it seems to me, what you're addressing, is this faith and hope that human beings somehow evolve, and there's no proof of that.
Go ahead. What do you mean?
Somebody came out with an article recently I read in the New Yorker by a person who studies sociopaths and psychopaths.
Yeah.
That 3% of a given population is psychopathic.
Okay.
People tend towards positions of power.
Yeah.
Now, what you're trying to say is that there's going to be this redistribution of wealth. Mahatma Gandhi said there's enough for everybody's needs, but not enough for everybody's greeds. I think fear, panic, self-centeredness, psychopathic qualities,
right.
Religious prejudice, all kinds of things breed this inability to redistribute wealth.
Well,
And somebody once said, we're all equal. Some people are more equal than others.
yeah, Animal Farm.
And I think that when you get down to that, who's going to redistribute the wealth? Who's going to redistribute the power?
Well, one of the things, if I may, Ron.
I don't have that faith that you seem
Well,
to have in Bucky's vision.
Not just Bucky, not just Bucky.
What seems to be a religious belief.
Not
in
for me.
science or religious belief in those particular. And maybe they do. It's been predicated that by Terence McKenna that
Yeah.
At 10, the Mayan calendar when it expires.
10/12,
what's going to happen
2012.
is the Chinese are going to break the cold fusion.
Yeah, cold fusion
Right?
ponds. Yeah.
Now, so if they break the cold fusion, that'll of course be a great thing because China can get its ass out of Africa.
And we'll be a third world party.
Yeah.
Third world
Well,
country.
they're
For one
China's
thing-
a lot, scooping up every mineral they can, whether it's the Sudan.
They're the major developer of Africa right now.
Yeah, China's like
Yeah.
all over Africa. They're buying everything they can.
Yeah,
They're
they
immigrating
are.
people there. They're having, they're sending some of their like surplus population there to
All
like
that
spread the
South
word.
Africa.
No, all over there.
You know
Yeah.
what's interesting about China? Anywhere in the world, any country in the world that you go to, every seaport, believe it or not,
Has
has
a
a Chinese population because everybody loves Chinese food, and the Chinese want
It is
all over
good.
the world, and we've put a little foothold in every country
And no matter
because
where
there
they're
are people
born,
that ran
and
Chinese
no matter where they're
restaurants
born,
there.
they're Chinese. I have a friend of mine who's Vietnamese, but he doesn't call himself Vietnamese. He's Chinese because he was Chinese Vietnamese.
Oh.
I know a guy who's a Chinese who's born in India. He speaks Bengali, he speaks several different languages, but he's Chinese.
One of the things you said, if I could, Robert Wright's written a really good book. Robert Wright's a really good writer and everything. He wrote a book called Non-Zero Sum. And every decision, every thought, every organization within human society, it's always been within a condition of zero sum. There's not enough. For me to win, you have to lose.
Well, you create
Now,
scarcity
if
by
you're
creating
talking,
desire.
well, maybe, or you create it, but the chart, I'm trying to report the chart. The chart that he had, does this make any sense? He said by the coming out of human history, by the First World War, in his reckoning, and it calls for a definition of terms, what do you mean by haveness and all of that? We lay it out in the text if you want to look. But it says, in his reckoning, by the First World War, about 10% of the world might have been able to be seen to be haves. He said by the Second World War, and it's going hyperbolic. By the Second World War, it had reached a point where, and then he wrote this in 52, and he said we were going to approach and cross the 50% mark around the year, 20 years out, around the year 1972. And again, not the reality. Don't confuse it with the politics and the reality.
When did Buckman
He died in 83. But then he said, and that would be the marker for our having more haves and have-nots at the level of capability, not the reality. The reality sucks. The reality always sucks. It's a nightmare of injustice. The whole of the human experience is. It's all that. But that there were more haves and have-nots for the first time in 200,000 years of our existence at the level of capability or design.
Where do you find
Well, that's
that?
the definition you have to get to. How do you get to it? It's worth considering. They did in World Game. There were other people who did. It's the idea. And so you get to that. It's not zero sum. It's non-zero sum. And it's a situation where what you're going to have. You're going to have a system that's so comprehensively appropriate that it's going to be able to be liberating of the masses of the people who are now like serfs on a feudal estate to a few bankers who owe all the assets and that kind of thing out of history. Injustice in every country. The international order is unjust. It's unjust wealth, power, and all that kind of stuff. You're going to have a system that's going to be liberating of the masses, plus the ecology, but also be liberating the people responsible for the historically inherited institutions that are outdated by the transformation. It's like the United States of America came out of a feudal past. They were a bunch of bumpkins across the ocean talking about republic and something called democracy, and they informed the Enlightenment in Europe. It was a thing of this time. So the thing of the time now is that, so it's getting it at that level, and it doesn't mean redistribution. You're going to have to be able to include the people responsible for the outdated institutions in a way they can go along with, as with everybody else. Big challenge. You're going to include everybody. You're not going to have some special group win out. It's going to be, you know who it's going to be? It's going to be the intellectuals. It's not going to be the bankers. It's not going to be the
You
politicians.
get more than one person in a room without having an argument.
Well, no, but the point is don't blame the Marxists will blame the capitalists will blame the Marxists, they'll blame the Jews will do this and that and all that. It's not that. It's the intellectuals that are falling down on the job. It's the intellectuals are not presenting an alternative. That's us. We're falling down on the job, stumbling all over a bunch of deaderists from history.
This question, you're proving your premise. How in the world can you say we have more haves than have-nots?
I don't. We don't. In the reality,
of the world lives on less than $1
you're not
a day.
talking about the reality, Rudolph. You're not talking about the reality sucks. The reality sucks. It's gross injustice everywhere.
Advances you're talking about. These advances you're talking about. By World War I, there was by World War II. Well, let's have a couple more wars.
Well,
Then we'll get there.
no, that just
Bad
happened.
idea.
That happened.
Bad idea.
Well,
Okay.
the reality is using the war is like.
Okay, back to the premise.
Well, you kill off enough people, and then the rest of the people can have a lot of hands.
But don't you realize, gentlemen,
One thing
we
that's not
tried.
considered is the effect, let's say, of the ecology of the planet.
The ecology has
For
to
a
be
war.
included.
Because let's say in World War II, I read a lot about World War II, and before any time they would invade an island, you'd always have to bomb the shit out of coral, because coral was a big problem with landing on the beaches in the Pacific conflict, right? I mean, the amount of displacement or the amount of creating of like harmful gases, or the amount of production of like unnecessary metals, the sinkings of ships, the amount of iron that's put into the ocean.
Great advances in medicine.
Well, people like to point out
Great advances in medicine, and the
Okay.
hospitals are making money hand over fist.
The war, like space
We're living longer.
exploration, brings about certain
We're getting sicker for a long period of time.
So much money is spent on those.
Spending on money on the
technology.
pharmaceuticals.
But you can advance that technology without having to invest in war or space travel. I mean, I think those are huge.
I think
wastes
space
of money.
travel is absurd.
It's totally absurd.
It's
You can't
totally
live in space.
absurd.
Someone
I'm
knows
physical
we have to
space.
live
We
off
are
planet.
in space.
No, but you can't live off planet.
We're going to relate-
You have osteoporosis and you osteocirrhosis, and you also get insanity. I mean, you
We
cannot-
already have it.
No, but I mean,
But
to a
there
We
great
is-
already have
wait, wait,
insanity,
wait, wait.
and we're living in space.
I'm not a-
We revolve around the sun.
I'm not a futurist.
We are living in
I'm
space.
I have skepticism about space, but yet the time may come when we are able from planet Earth to send living people, including ourselves, to another planet in another hemisphere or another galaxy, and that literally the spark of life will come from Earth and land there, and will die out on Earth, and we will continue to live in another galaxy.
Only
because
if we
of
can
our
kill the
minds and our
inhabitants
sex
I would-
of that planet.
I would suggest that
Fix your own
the
house before you start looking
the
at
re-
it.
the
Oh,
re-
I agree.
Yeah, I know that bean stuff, right?
I would suggest the
Take
relation.
the beam in your own eye before you work in the splinter in the other guy.
I think it's back within the material plane, and I think that there will be. It's like
My book.
the metaphor will be, and it's going to be. It is now informing the political process, the economic process. All economic theory and so forth is out of date. We need something new and everything. But I would think the relationship to the broader cosmos is going to be a resonancy that will interaccommodate us to universe at a level transcendent to what we've been. It will be the resonancy of a collective liberated process that is the task before us, and it's there, the capability is there, the vision is not. The leadership of the world needs vision, transformative vision. It should be coming from the intellectuals. The intellectuals are all caught up on things like who's to blame and all that kind of thing. So that's what the premise of, and it's a...
Remember when they did intelligence test on the Nazis, basically,
Yeah.
there was only 2 of them that were found normal
Uh-huh.
in terms of intelligence. Everybody else was above normal, and then some of them were at genius level.
They were misled.
I think you can't construe intellectual abilities. The highest men's score ever was John Sununu, the Republican from the
Hi, Kay. Kai,
Really?
come
Where
in.
did he scored the highest what
highest
intelligence?
men's score ever.
You know what?
really?
Was John
He
Sununu.
cheated.
Wow.
He might have.
He
but-
cheated.
he
The guy's
is
an
a
idiot.
stupid man.
You gotta be bright to cheat.
No, you can't.
No, he is a
confuse
stupid.
one's
He
He
ability to
cheated.
have
His
or-
son is an idiot. He's an idiot. He didn't lose enough weight.
You don't like his politics. That's all
Neither
I'm
do I
gonna
like his
say.
politics.
I mean,
I don't either, but it doesn't mean I deny
Well,
his brilliance.
the point
Yeah, I
is,
deny
there's
his
no
brilliance.
correlation. There's never been a correlation between
What's that
intellect
idiot's name?
and morality.
Okay, if you say so.
Somebody to be
1994
moral.
came into the Congress.
You know, psychopaths, sociopaths,
Big,
all get around that. They can pretend
They
and
had
act
the,
very well. The
Republican-
same way politicians who can act and pretend very well that they have your
Gingrich
interest
is
in
a
mind.
genius. Gingrich is a
And do.
genius.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
You know,
And
drug
him too.
dealers. I mean, people can act like they have your best interest in mind when they're just hustling you.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, and they
That's
do.
what intellectuals do to sell books.
Yes.
They
The art of
keep tenure
politics.
to,
Yes,
like,
we understand all
get
these.
girls or guys.
But again, that's, if I may, gentlemen, that is arguing a detail like the orbit pathways of Jupiter that you could be talking about back in Galileo's time. The pattern. The pattern is what you're looking for.
No,
You're
but the
saying my
problem,
intellectual.
You have a,
if I may, the problem with the pattern is very simple.
yeah.
The pattern is we're dealing with what's called human nature. And there's
Yeah,
a fundamental collection of
Right.
problems with human nature.
Yeah.
And we know that part of human nature is desiring power.
Right.
And figuring out how to manipulate
And
to
money.
make sure and all
We
those
need the power.
aspects.
Well, human nature is part of what is been formulated out of the institutions coming out of history. We got notions of human nature, a lot of which, if you ever bring up something like we can all get along, they'll say that's idealistic. You're just idealistic. You don't understand. Human nature is essentially greedy and power and all this.
No, they're
So we
cooperative
never,
societies.
we never
Most
can have
societies
one
are
of a
cooperative.
cooperative.
It's a
That's
big
called
story.
human nature,
Yeah,
and
that's
human
the
nature
argument.
within. That's the argument that is done within any zero-sum situation
Exactly.
where you have to grab your own and a woman has to make sure her kids are starving whether the other ones don't. All of that, that's all part of scarcity. It's
survival.
scarcity,
Survival.
and it's that which we're transcending,
But it-
so that you
but it-
don't. You could have non-zero sum,
But it all-
everybody
It
involved.
has to do with another.
So it's one of the
It has to do
tra-
with evolutionary theory. Also.
Yes, we're getting to evolutionary theory, and the premise is that we are coming to punctuated equilibrium. We're coming to a point where we will be able to, in a very real sense, get beyond the ironclad laws of scarcity,
But the problem-
which has
the
informed
problem
all our
when you use
thinking,
the word-
including
when you use the
economic
word
theory.
Punctuated equilibrium.
Yeah.
All it means is evolution can take place in a jump.
No, it goes very quickly when you speciate.
Exactly. And
A
the thing is,
qualitative
the
transformation.
speciation can take place in a negative way or a positive way. We have no,
Well, I
no
think the-
idea how that punctuation's about to happen.
Well, the punctuation, I think that we're at a point where we could just cut off
That chart would be all right.
the everybody. Could we agree on the idea that or could you agree on the idea?
It's an idea, disagree.
Is it possible? Do we realize that as recently as the Second World War, we were impotent in our destructive capability to even consider species lethal capability?
That's correct.
That is correct. We were trying firebombing, all that, everything,
5
full
minutes
out,
warning.
full out mobile.
Now we've jumped ahead.
Have
Kill
we
everybody.
reached the point? Do you think there's modeling of this and so forth that if there's an unleashing of the weapon systems that exist, hair trigger alert, 3 or 4, no, we couldn't do it in 1905 with special
What did
theory.
Einstein say?
I don't know. He said relativity, but we couldn't.
No, not the relativity.
Oh, we're going to be sticks and stones. But the point being is that the next war would be fought with sticks and stones. But the thing is that
He said we have developed a destructive force
Yeah.
that is derived up not our ability intellectually to prevent it from happening.
that's okay. The
we have
point.
to change our way of thinking.
Yeah, but
I would like to make two very
no, but why change? Why can there
Because we
be
got people like
no?
Harry Truman.
What is there about this time, if anything? This time we're talking 2009, and that. What is there about this time, or this 50 years, or this period,
Harold talk.
We don't go to hell.
or this?
We go to help ourselves to the tungsten and the rice and the raw materials because the Vietnamese won that war, and where are they now? A fucking sweatshop.
Let me,
Okay.
I'm to say two things.
So,
Well, I'd like to make
this
just two.
empire is
I want
like
just.
fucking rules.
Could I have 30 seconds? 2 points.
25.
25 seconds. One is that species annihilation means self-suicide. So unless you're an Islamic fanatic, you're not going to embrace
Hey,
that. Number two, second point, the German general who was supposed to burn Paris thought Paris was too beautiful to burn. And I hope that when it comes down to the really final showdown and A-bombs are dropping everywhere, that somewhere there's a human being like a German general that spared Paris that will spare some part of planet Earth from this horrible end that we all know
He
is how.
spared Paris so he could steal some of them paintings.
But the point to be made, in order to make the adverse point, exactly, or trying to make it, or have it brought up as something to think about. The point to be made, there was somebody in Cuba in 1962-63 who made a decision in Russia that made it possible not to have a nuclear exchange with Russia. Even if it was done according to the modeling, even if there...
The Cuban Missile.
Cuban Missile. There was a guy made a decision. Never mind. The guy made it. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's a detail. Don't talk about detail. You're looking for patterns. And the thing is that even if they had unleashed that, then there would have been human survivors.
Right.
There would have been somebody in New Guinea. We were still impotent.
No, you keep mentioning New Guinea. Let me tell you, the
Well, no,
place
that's
in the world
just-
that saved us is Culebra, which is a small island off of Puerto Rico where the turtles lay eggs. I studied this.
Okay.
In case of a nuclear war, Culebra, an island off of the Puerto Rican coast. If you want to survive, that's the safest place on the planet in case of a nuclear
The
war.
point being, as
Not New
recently
Guinea.
as the Second World War, where we were trying with all of our technological extended capability to do destruction to one another, we were impotent. Historically, we were gestating. We were impotent. We couldn't do it. We didn't have it. Now that has changed, and it has changed from about the year 1970. Does that make any sense to you? It doesn't.
No.
Not
the date
I'll say
1970.
the question is that a reality at the level of capability that it is now species lethal? You've got
Einstein said it long before that.
thermal weapons, and then you've got
one
germ
disagrees with
weapons,
that,
and you've
Harold.
got wave weapons.
Einstein, the presidency of Israel, he said, fuck
Okay,
you.
so that rules out that thing. We're still going to be able to do an all-out war.
Yes.
We're going to be able to let 4 or 5 bombs go out of Israel towards Iraq, atomic bombs. There's not going to be a reaction to the Tuchman thing where the thing folds in and everybody says we can't stand that and everything like that. That's not going to. That can't possibly happen. That capable. It would have to get to the all-out releasing of the weapons power of the United States of America.
And Russia.
No, it'd be the United
No,
States.
Russia has a bomb to destroy.
No, I think
us still. We
effective.
haven't bought them all yet.
Well, that's a
I
question.
understand.
It could be modeled, but the point is,
That's
it
what Obama is
exists.
heading towards.
What does that mean? When
Well, it
nuclear
means
war-
that's an existential new relationship in universe to the evolution of consciousness. It's finally reached the point where it can self-annihilate the entire conscious line called humanity. Is that true or not?
Is this your optimistic view?
No, that's the pessimistic.
What did he say? Pessimistic?
No, is it? Think about it. Is it true? How many think it's true?
that information.
No, just take it in.
It is true.
That's all. Just take it in.
Well, what do you
Do you realize? Do you see it as existentially new?
Well, it's even more true than when Einstein proposed.
No, is it true now, or has it been? When
Don't
did
worry
it?
about the day.
All right, it wasn't. It wasn't true in 1945. We know. We agree upon.
But it was true
When did it become relevant? I mean, when did it become
Today,
true?
when you mentioned it.
No.
No.
When did it? The best.
1980, when Russia had enough bombs that we had assured mutual.
Well, we've had some
destruction.
diminishing
That's why
of
we had a
missiles.
stalemate where we never had a war.
But-
They knew they would destroy themselves.
The only reason you make the negative point, the negative point, is to try to have a context of thinking a pattern on the adverse side of the negative. And that thing that is in that little chart is so comprehensively significant to all institutional assumptions, our architecture, our nation state, everything, including our notions of human nature. Everything. So you have to get to something very extreme and very wear out, like destroy the whole friggin' species, in order to get to the idea we may actually have transcended material scarcity as a reality. At the level of capability.
It will be over material scarcity. People will be fighting over clean water.
Well, that's another thing you can argue about. It's the premise.
They're usually about
It's the
scarcity,
premise.
not about
Now,
Just another example, by the way.
and then that's going to affect all economic theory.
Just another-
It's going to make the
Cares
thing.
about economic theory when the world's
Henry
falling
George
apart.
had ideas about how we're going to organize economic theory. I've got ideas. This paper we didn't get near to. How are we going to organize? The whole thing behind the political process is economics.
Yeah, but-
The whole thing behind economics is economic theory. How do we relate to having a world? How do we relate to that issue? We couldn't get to it because we're talking all these side
Because you're
issues.
making it too simple.
Well, no, you want it to be simple as a pattern.
Agenda, you're trying to shove
I'm not got an agenda.
I just want to mention why. I just want to mention why it's too simple.
Yeah, let Kai talk. He's with the
Right
Henry
now.
George School.
Right now,
Let him. You go next.
Right after I
Make
finish.
sure you get in front of the camera, Kai.
Kai. Come on, Kai.
Right after.
Look, it's
right after-
going
Let
off.
Kai speak.
Where's John? Where's
Joe.
Kai.
Oh.
I just want to finish this one example.
All right.
We're down at the Union Square right now.
Yeah.
We're up, that's where I live. And
You see the demonstration?
I'm going to talk about demonstrate, but this is a different one. The new school wanted to build a larger university.
Yeah, who's the president? Who's the
Kerry.
goddamn fucking
Kerry.
president?
Carey, Bob Carey.
No, he's leaving. He announced he's leaving.
He's a good man.
But what took place...
Good man, war criminal. You like them war
Democrat.
criminals.
But
You like them war criminals,
what
right?
took place
Put
is-
his knee on an 88-year-old man's chest so his partner could slit his throat.
What-
We need that at the new school.
Now, here's an example. So what took place on one side of the building was they don't want a university that's going to be, shining light into their windows.
Yeah.
So they're ready to kill the university. The university doesn't know how to proceed. You've got miniature fights in
Yes,
this
I know.
world of everybody
Yeah.
against everybody.
Yes, right. That's coming to a
So
crescendo.
there's no way to get people
There's no
to
abundance.
operate in this
There's
enormous, larger
scarcity still
viewpoint.
Well, let me say one thing. Let me say one quick thing, and then we'll go to Kai. But the thing is, Norbert Wiener Stallman, he's one of our friends who took AOL. His dad was a scholar, was in the room with Norbert Wiener when they coined the term 1948 cyber. He was in the room about like this.
Who was in the room?
Norbert Wiener, the father of Mark Stallman, our friend. All right, and he used to say information overload. This is relevant because everything's going cyber, everything's going internet, all of that now. He said information overload permits pattern recognition. We're all running around within the parts of it. You can see patterns. So what we're looking for, and a unique human capability, is to recognize patterns.
No, you
We should be thinking about patterns, not the details. We've been trained to go into the
The
details.
internet allows misinformation where we have all kinds of people that are actually
Yeah.
convinced that we bombed
Kai,
the World Trade Center.
Kai, take it away, Kai. He's the Henry George School head of, yeah.
No, we have what you said.
I'm going to check the camera in a minute.
Everybody's fighting against everybody else. Folks, the war is all against on the micro level. Now, Kelso says you can give to the poor without taking away from the rich. Henry George says the same thing. I would argue that if you solve the basic underlying economic problem, you have a whole different world and people will be less inclined to fight everybody.
Yeah, but isn't there only 100% of any given thing in existence? There's only 100%.
No, if you have genetically engineered salmon, you got 500% more salmon. just
Yeah,
like
you got
that.
500% more people in the fucking hospital.
Oh, that's
Feed the world-
that's
feed the world
propaganda.
population
Propaganda.
completely, and you have less war. Why do you have in Somalia, why do we have the Somalian pirates take out big ships?
You want me to say it? You want me to tell you?
Because they're starving, they have nothing.
Then how did that happen?
So
Europeans
let's
steal from them?
No, because they have land, you can't grow crops on there, living in the
The whole
desert.
history of colonialism and neocolonialism. I mean, how
Exactly.
So and
It's not their fault.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's my point. It's not their fault. So let them have a piece of the pie without it really taking away.
A
from
piece
our
of their
people.
own pie.
Oh, right, exactly.
No, how about the world pie?
Their land as well
I
as
heard
ours.
that, but
That's a
something
big
more
pie.
serious.
Let them be quiet. You re-enter that.
It wasn't the Nazis' fault. It was a Treaty of Versailles. You can go on and on. You can
Oh, you're attacking the pirates. You're saying the fucking
No.
military, the American military that shot those fucking kids
But where does
in
it
the
go?
head
But where does
were
it-
brave? That's what I hear on
They were
American
saving
television.
America. They were
Brave.
saving
Fuck
America.
him.
America Kennedy.
Fuck him.
Good for them.
Fuck him! What was he doing on that boat? What was that boat doing? What was that boat doing? Yeah, what was that boat doing? What was that American boat doing off the coast of Somalia?
Just earning a living.
Protecting the Somali fish?
Harold, you've convinced me peace is possible.
Right here, World War III. Right here, this room.
Brave snipers. Oh, the bravest snipers I've ever seen. You know why they were so brave? Because the boat was rocking like this. And the other ones, if you're not brave, start vomiting.
No, they hit him right dead, so they didn't even have a chance to pull the trigger. They had the gun on the guy they were holding captive. They were really sharpshooters. They were expert at what they did.
And they're brave? What danger were they in?
They were saving an American life.
What danger were they
Saving
in?
an American life.
Why call them brave? What danger were they
I'm
in?
saying they were saving an American life. They were threatening.
What was that American life doing off the coast of Somalia?
Earning a living.
Earning a living? Why? Why did he go there to earn a living?
He just happened to be there earning a living. A lot of people go abroad to earn livings.
Yeah, but a lot of people go abroad to kill the inhabitants of other countries to earn a living.
Stocks or there were boys probably making deliveries of sandwiches to people in that building that died. They never got the $1 million compensation. They would never know.
For a couple of seconds, like when that started. That's when he had this vision, because this guy used to appear to him like a leprechaun or something, and tell him, this guy from the future had told
Terrence
him.
McKenna.
That's where he came up with that theory about China developing the cold fusion thing. Thank you. Was his leprechaun used to talk to him, and he was in that time travel.
Right.
So much faith in that.
Terrence McKenna was the spokesperson for the drug generation in high times.
How did I miss him? I guess I'd given up pot before that all started.
Well, he was in Brazil doing these medicinal.
You were probably waving a flag somewhere.
There's a lot of important stuff in created medicines. I mean, they found a lot of cures for diseases.
Well, I was interested. I was interested in what Kai said. Can we? What do you? If you Henry George, this thing talks about economics. It gets to economics. We were just talking about pattern, and then it gets to one of economics. I like Louis Kelso and the idea that you got to have some. I think the labor theory of value has to be visited very seriously because it seems to inform all economic theory, with the possible.
Yeah, but if you do away with the labor theory of economics, then the poor people have no goddamn leverage.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that it
And
is.
they're shot upon.
One of the charts in there that got at economics is that the input to production is heading.
Al Gore.
The labor input, intellectual and physical labor input to production is reaching the vanishing point in terms of the reality.
Is the majority of the people on the planet who are poor. Labor is another word for the majority of the people on the planet who are poor. And if you don't have a labor-based economy, then the poor people, the masses of people on the planet have no leverage.
Well, they don't now. There's 7% of the private sector is unionized.
Unionize them.
They're not working. It's not working. They're not working. You've only got 7%.
The work, when there was the poor people, but I'm thinking as a constituency, as a power block, is the public.
But so
the public be enough of a grip on the poor people as opposed to the workers.
you have.
The unemployed, their wives, all that, you know.
Right.
So that's Mr. Obama.
You think the union?
Huh?
You think a union?
I think a union is a bad idea. It's
Trouble is our politicians are bought.
The union makes us strong.
No, the problem is we live in a
If we
society
have
where
solidarity forever.
our politicians are bought, and it's very hard for poor working people, especially unemployed poor working people, to outbid the owners of factories and the vested interest in owning the politicians, because we make politics in this country a money game, and that's outrageous.
Commodity.
Yeah, Lord
Capitalism commoditizes everything.
Lord John Maynard
Not
Keynes.
capitalism, but I attack the money influence in politics. There is a difference.
You want to
No difference.
You want to talk to it. The economics informs political process, the whole political process, and the economics profession is informed by economic theory. And one of the great economic theorists we had in the canon, that goes from Smith to Ricardo and it was John Maynard Keynes, and he said in 1930 to his grandchildren that you are going to be confronted with something that is very hard for you to conceive of, and that is massive, massive technologically induced unemployment. That the use of labor, which has been intrinsic to the economic theorizing of virtually all our economic theory, as I understand it, is outdated. And that we're going to have an alternative.
But your theory is people are outdated.
Well, not if you only account that people are only relevant as economicus, humanus economicus, but they are being superseded by technological capability to provide.
But you know what?
And we distribute.
Yeah, but we about that in modern times.
We distribute all income to the people, by and large, the masses of the people, through a labor relationship, what we call a job, while the capital assets or the productive assets, which are becoming increasingly responsible for production, are owned by a tiny class. It's just like with the kingdoms of old. And we should not let them pull that wool over our eyes.
What is the economy for? What is the economy for?
To steal the work of the
No, I mean, in an ideal world, in reality, what was economy in the 250,000 years we've had society
to facilitate trade?
Let him talk.
Societies, there's never been a society that was without economy, and that has a reason. The reason being is that the economy is there to satisfy human needs, not robots' needs, not technological needs, human needs. Now, the task for the economy is, the task for economic theory is, we have practically 7 billion people on the planet, and what we have to do as economists, we have to give clean air, clean water, clean food, and shelter and clothing to 7 billion people. That's the task. Don't worry about the computer programmers, don't worry about the robots. That's the task, because the economy is there to satisfy human needs. And everything else is nonsense. And there, labor theory comes back in, because people are entitled to a piece of the pie of nature.
Because they contribute to production?
Yeah,
you think...
Because they live. Because the moment a baby is born on this planet, it has a right to live.
Okay.
All human beings have a right to live. No one can live without human natural resources.
Yeah.
So all human beings have a right to natural resources.
Well, there's where...
That's Henry George.
Yeah, I would understand. If I would, I'd really like to understand Henry George, a very progressive force, a very important force in terms of economic theorizing, 19th, 20th century change, more or less, late 19th century, 20th, was inspiration, I think, to Teddy Roosevelt, the progressive era. Very important, and he wrote about what is it, Progress and Poverty, or and wait a minute. But I'd like to understand it, because Kai is an expert on that. It seems to me.
If you please don't interrupt our chairman.
It seems to me. It seems to me.
Foreign policy was what the domestic was what.
Yeah, but it seems to me, Kai, what he was talking about was...
Mexico lost its territory to the United States.
Yeah, 1848. That the natural resources of the world belong to everybody. That would include spectrum and everything. And that is exactly the point. And that we should not allow the natural resources.
Public access. We all need public access.
But when you say that it belongs to people, does it belong to dolphins, or does it belong to...
Well, that's another issue that could be brought in.
And the family that has 9 children, are they entitled to the same resources as a family that has no...
Well, let's talk about the premise, though, like of Henry George.
One thing that you missed. One thing that has been missed in this discussion is that technology, your fear that technology is going to replace labor. What happened is in Detroit, we got all these robots, and we got these guys who are making will you let me finish? Let these guys making $75 an hour making cars replaced by robots. Then what happened? They just get them made in China by guys making $10 an hour. So the Chinese worker at $10 an hour replaced the robots and the displaced workers in Detroit. So actually, in a way, there's always a demand for human labor, and that is really
where was that hat of yours?
There probably will be, but the labor theory of value.
It would have to be made in America. It's a patriotic hat.
Yeah, how is it was made in China or Taiwan?
I mean, it was made by.
Where are the pants you're wearing made?
I don't care.
Well, why are you asking me where my clothes are made?
Because this is a pseudo-patriotic...
Are you a queen or something? I don't like them.
Okay.
Yeah, your tie and your hat indicates the level of your intelligence.
We've been talking about major premises. And to economics, we've got an economist who's come representing that. We have somebody here I think is of a Marxist persuasion. There's lots of different things. To my way of thinking, it doesn't make any difference who, as long as it is all being informed by the labor theory of value, that human activity creates wealth. And the Marxists would say it's surplus labor. It's congealed labor is what capital is, or capital intangible, capital instruments are concealed labor. It's all created by labor. Everything belongs to labor. And so that's the basic policy. Mr. Obama is not talking about anything other than creating jobs. That would be like jobs for people, and that's how they get in.
That's jobs. Oh, like join the military as a job to invade Afghanistan.
Whatever.
Because when America goes up, the world goes up with it. Because jobs in America makes consumption in America get back on track, and then all those people that are being laid off.
So you have two things.
All over the world, prosperity spreads. For the great beating heart of American capitalism.
Well, okay, but the thing is, you got two things in an economic equation. You have demand, and then you have supply. Yeah. So you have supply. You have to have capital for investment. You have to be able to invest in infrastructure and all that. You have to create supply, and the people have to have the ability to buy what can be created on the supply side. We don't have anything that is simul-financing. It's either supply side, demand side. You got Keynes or you get Friedman.
How about
and they have to have an alternative way to distribute income to the masses of the people, which has an
How about Henry Ford decided he had to pay his workers enough that he could afford to buy the cars he was making. He paid people 5 or 10 times what the going wage was, and had workers flocking to him because he said you have to pay people that they can buy the product you make. I know you don't like that, but it's a very interesting idea.
Let me show you.
Let me explain something to you about